So I'm reviewing American Fiction, a movie released in 2023. It's directed by first-time director Cord Jefferson and starring Jeffrey Wright. It's based on a novel written by Percival Elliott, and it had been nominated for Best Picture at the 2024 Academy Awards. The movie follows Jeffrey Wright's character, Thelonious Ellison, whose nickname is Monk. He's a frustrated novelist and college professor. The title refers to the genre that he believes his work belongs to. Not African American fiction, but just American fiction. It reminds me of Inside Llewyn Davis, one of my all-time favorite movies. Both of them follow a creative who's struggling to make their work known to the world at large. Both men encounter other people whose work brings them more success, but maybe it's not quite as good as their own. There are some obvious differences, of course. For Llewyn Davis, seeing a quote-unquote lesser artist have more success is just another signpost on his journey through life. Whereas in this movie, it's actually the inciting incident for the rest of the movie. Monk is in his hometown of Boston to speak at a book convention, which coincides with him being put on administrative leave. So he's at this panel. It's sparsely attended. He's wondering where everybody is. He walks into this larger panel, and the speaker is another Black author. She's like him. She's articulate, educated, but she's a first-time author, and she's got people eating out of her hand. The author, Santara, reads a passage from her book. The passage that she reads has the most stereotypical ghetto dialogue, and everyone is just fawning over it, and Monk is just completely dumbfounded. This movie looks at the lead character's professional struggle as well as his personal struggle. While he's in his hometown, he reconnects with his mother, his widowed mother, played by Leslie Uggams, who I've been watching in the Fallout show. He also reconnects with his sister, played by Tracy Ellis Ross, who I've recently learned is the daughter of Diana Ross. He also gets reconnected with his brother, played by Sterling Brown. Monk is a professor. He seems to be tenured, if somewhat unproductive. His two siblings are medical doctors. Their late father had been a respected medical doctor as well, but despite their professions, maybe because of his siblings' divorces, Monk is unmarried. They are put in a somewhat tenuous financial situation because their mother is showing early signs of dementia. So through a combination of professional frustration, financial desperation, light intoxication, and you could argue maybe creative inspiration, Monk sits down and he writes the most stereotypical ghetto gangster book. He does it as a joke, but he submits it to his literary agent. To their surprise, they get positive reception for it. All of a sudden, Monk has the sort of success that he had wanted for his real work, which is more highbrow intellectual content. Can Monk keep up the facade? He uses an alias, of course, so nobody knows who this author is of this breakout book. Will he keep up the facade? Will his principles get the better of him? He's a prickly character, but he's also a very principled character. The other story question would be, can Monk and his family members overcome their differences? A critique that I would have, the story has two stories within it, and neither one is interesting or strong enough to be its own movie. The movie's called American Fiction, but I would call it American drama. The drama in Monk's professional life and his personal life. It's supposed to be a satire, so it's kind of this dramedy. All of the white characters are in a comedy, and all of the Black characters are in a light drama. So all the intended laughs come at the expense of the white characters, who are more caricatures than anything else. There are some funny lines, but most of them come from the siblings. The funniest scene is the opening scene. It's Monk getting into a disagreement with one of his students who takes offense to the N-word being in the title of one of the readings that he's trying to get them to reflect upon. The part of the movie that makes it stand out, the conversation between Monk and Santara. I won't spoil it. Their professional lives bring them together in a plausible way. As crazy as it might sound, maybe her work is actually good. Maybe the people who are buying her book really like it because it is insightful. I know the passage is supposed to be like comical, but it made me think about this book that I've read multiple times, Bloods by Wallace Terry. It's not a fictional book. It's more of a collection of interviews of Black veterans of the Vietnam War. Wallace Terry did these interviews after the end of the Vietnam War, and he made an effort to interview men from all of the branches, various ranks, various roles, various backgrounds. And some of them do talk as though they come from poor or uneducated backgrounds, but it doesn't mean that their stories are any less worthy. They deserve to have their stories shared as well. I would say it's a good movie, not a great movie. I'd put it in the same category as Past Lives. Critically acclaimed, some people will say it's the best movie of the year. In my view, it's not as great. I would give it a light recommendation if you're okay with maybe putting some thought into the nature of creative works that depict trauma and struggling and whether or not it's exploitative. If nothing else, you can let it play in the background. There's some cool jazz music. The performances of the leads are great. I like the interaction among the characters. It's almost like watching a dysfunctional version of the Huxtables. That's my review of American Fiction.